Hello everyone. While on vacation, traveling on roads or by trains, I'm sure you must have traveled through wide big forests. You always feel very soothing in that moment because you're very far away from your normal lives. But have you ever wondered how these forests came into existence or why these forests are there? Let us try to understand how these forests play a very important role in our lives. The forests are large areas of land on which various types of plants and trees grows naturally. All these vegetations and various types of plants are collectively called as flora. Along with trees and plants, there are also a lot of animals which exist in the forest. All these animals which live in the forest are also collectively called as wildlife or fauna. It is very rare to find one or two animal and plant species living in isolation. Usually, we find a lot of different species of plants and animals coexisting, that is, they live together. This indicates that these species are in some way dependent on each other for their existence. This wide variety of species of plants and animals is what makes the forest centers or the hotspots for diversity. With the growth of industrialization and human dependence on forest and wildlife, the supplies for the manufacture of various products, the forests were cut down and the animals were hunted. Due to this, there was a tremendous loss in the biodiversity, which in turn affected the natural ecosystem. Let us try to understand how this affects us. With the cutting of trees and forests, the wildlife that exists in the forest lose their habitat. They either have to migrate to other place or they die due to the loss of their natural habitat. Also, with the killing of animals like snakes for their skin to make shoes and bags and also for their consumption, their population is going down drastically. As rodents are the primary food source for the snakes, this leads to the increase in their population. These rodents enter into our crop fields and damage the crops, and which in turn affects us. We also obtain many valuable products such as life-saving drugs, silk, lac, and honey from the wildlife that exists in the forest. This imbalance in the natural ecosystem also affects the products which we obtain from the forest. These were just very few examples where these forests and wildlife are important to us. So this makes it very important for us to realize how in a judicial manner we can use them. All the people directly or indirectly dependent on these resources are called as stakeholders in these natural resources. Let us see the major stakeholders in the natural resources. The first one are the local people who live in or around the forest and are dependent to lead their life on the forest products. They need large quantities of firewood, thatch and small timber. Bamboos are used to make slats of huts, baskets for collecting and storing of food. They also make instruments of agriculture, hunting and fishing from the woods. These forests are also sites for hunting and fishing. They also graze their animals in the forest. The second one are the forest department of the government, which are the major stakeholders of these forests because they have the greatest collection of revenue from the forest only. The third one are the industrialists who depend upon the forest products for the industries such as wood to make papers, textiles and other products. The fourth one are the wildlife and the forest activists who are not dependent on the forest but they want to see the forest in the pristine form. Initially, these people were concentrating on conserving the large animals such as lion, tiger, elephants and rhinoceros. But they realized that it is very important to conserve each and every animal present in the biodiversity. Now we know about the stakeholders and we also know that some are most affected by the destruction of forests and some can use these natural resources in a more conserving way. It is very important that whoever stakeholder is using these natural resources uses it in a very sustainable manner. There are many measures which can be taken to conserve these forests and wildlife. Laws should be made and imposed for a total ban on killing and capturing of the endangered species of birds and animals. Now, even if some animals and birds are in abundance today, their killing and capturing should be banned. The natural habitats for wild animals and birds should be established in the form of natural parks and sanctuaries throughout the country. The government should also take a periodic survey for these wildlife animals and birds. Special attention should be given to the endangered species. The unauthorized felling of forest trees for timber wood and fuel wood should be stopped immediately, and in case of government authorized felling of these forests, for every acre of forest which is cut down, equal number of plant saplings should be planted to make up for the loss. But all these conservation practices are impractical if there is no involvement of the local people. There are many instances from the history that showed that the local people have played a very important role in conserving this forest from being cut down. Let us see some of these such instances. There is a Bishnoi community near Jodhpur, Rajasthan state of our country, for whom the conservation of forest and wildlife is worth more important than their lives. In the year 1731, the minister of Maharajas of Marwar entered into the village with the intention of cutting the khejri trees which were sacred to the Bishnoi community. Amrita Devi Bishnoi raised her voice against this felling of tree, and as a result of this, she was killed in this protest. This sacrifice of her motivated the Bishnoi community to take care of the environment, and as a result of this, 363 people sacrificed their lives for every tree which was cut. As a result of this movement, the Maharaja has to take back his order for cutting of trees, and no trees were fallen after this movement. Another such movement was the Chipko movement or the Chipko Andolan. This movement started in the small hilly areas of Himalayas. The tribal people or the Garhwari people of the Uttarakhand played a very important role and stood against the ruthless cutting of the trees by the contractors. These people hugged the trees, or they formed the ring around the trees to protect this tree. The slogan of the Chipko movement was 5 F's, which means food, fodder, fuel, fiber and fertilizer. This movement also stopped the cutting of trees by the contractors. Another such movement for the protection of trees was seen in West Bengal. The government of West Bengal was unable to revive the degraded sal forest. So there was a continuous conflict between the local people and the government. At that instance, the forest officer A.K. Banerjee involved the villagers for the protection of 1272 hectares of badly degraded sal forest. In return of this help, the villagers were provided employment in the silviculture and the harvesting techniques. As a result of this, the sal forest revived to a great extent in only 11 years. So we have seen the instances in which the local people played a very important role to prevent the natural resources of forest and wildlife. We should also use these natural resources in a sustainable way. So in this video, we have seen the forest and the wildlife conservation techniques. In the next video, we are going to see the conservation of water.